When my daughter texted me I wasn't welcome at her wedding anymore, I collapsed on the kitchen floor holding my phone. 3 days later, I was standing outside the church with evidence that would blow her perfect day to pieces. That's when I realized life isn't just a mother-daughter dance. Sometimes it's a chess match where the queen must sacrifice herself to save the princess. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists harder than a tornado in Texas, and you'll want to be here for every shocking turn. I never thought I'd be the mother who gets uninvited to her only daughter's wedding. Not after everything we'd been through together. Not after raising Alice alone for most of her life. The text came on a Tuesday morning. I was baking her favorite lemon cake as a surprise for the rehearsal dinner, humming along to our special song, the one we always danced to in the kitchen when she was little. Mom, I've made a difficult decision. Dad convinced me it would be best if you weren't at the wedding. There's just too much drama when you're around. Please respect my wishes. My hands trembled so badly, I dropped my phone into the cake batter. 26 years of bedtime stories, bandaged knees, college tuition checks, and late-night heart-to-hearts, all erased with one text. I called her immediately. No answer. I texted back. Nothing. I drove to her apartment, but her fiancé Mark answered the door with that pitying look people give to unwanted strays. Alice doesn't want to see you right now, Patricia. You should go home. I hadn't cried that hard since the day my ex-husband Tom walked out on us when Alice was just 7. The same man who had now somehow convinced our daughter I was the villain in our story. That night, I pulled out the old photo albums, Alice's first steps, her high school graduation, our mother-daughter trip to Paris when she turned 21. In every picture, we were beaming, inseparable. What had happened? What lies had Tom told her? I poured myself a glass of wine and stared at my phone, willing it to light up with an apology text from Alice. Instead, I got a notification from my bank. Someone had withdrawn $5,000 from my savings account. My heart stopped when I saw the signature on the withdrawal slip. It was Alice's handwriting, but I hadn't authorized any withdrawals. And it wasn't the first time. Scrolling through my statements, I discovered over $30,000 missing over the past 3 months. This wasn't just about a wedding invitation anymore. Something was terribly wrong. Script part separator The next morning, I called my bank and confirmed my worst fears. Alice had been making withdrawals using the joint account we'd maintained since her college days. Legally, she could access the money, but we'd always had an understanding. That account was for emergencies only. I tried calling Alice again, and again, and again. Nothing but voicemail. I left messages that started concerned and ended desperate. Alice, honey, please call me back. I just want to understand what's happening. Alice, there's money missing from our account. I'm worried about you. Alice, please. I'm your mother. Whatever is going on, we can fix it together. On day 3 of the silent treatment, I received an envelope. Inside was a formal wedding invitation with my name crossed out in red ink and a handwritten note. As requested by the bride, your presence is no longer desired. The handwriting wasn't Alice's. It was Tom's. Something clicked inside me. This wasn't my daughter cutting me off. This was Tom's orchestration. The same man who'd abandoned us, paid child support late, if at all, and then reappeared in Alice's life during her college years, suddenly playing daddy with expensive gifts and empty promises. I called my old friend Diane, who worked at the courthouse. I need to know if Tom has any recent financial troubles, I told her. Patricia, honey, troubles doesn't begin to cover it, Diane said. He's being sued by 3 different creditors. His business is underwater, and there's a tax lien on his house. The man is drowning in debt. That's when I started to see the pattern. The timing of Alice's withdrawals. Tom's sudden interest in controlling the wedding. The expensive venue and flowers Alice couldn't possibly afford on her teacher's salary. My blood ran cold. Tom wasn't just trying to hurt me by keeping me away from the wedding. He was using our daughter as an ATM. I needed proof, and I needed allies. The wedding was in 4 days, and I wasn't going down without a fight. Script part separator My first call was to Clara, Alice's best friend and maid of honor. We'd always had a good relationship, and I prayed that hadn't changed. Mrs. Williams? Clara sounded nervous when she answered. I'm not supposed to talk to you. Clara, please. Something's very wrong. Has Alice seemed different lately? Stressed about money? Anything unusual? A long pause. Then, she's been crying a lot. And yes, there are money problems. The wedding budget keeps growing, but it's her dad who keeps adding things. Expensive things. My heart pounded. Has she mentioned the money she took from our joint account? Another pause. She said you promised to pay for the wedding. That it was always the plan. I closed my eyes, feeling sick. I did promise to help, but I never agreed to $30,000. And I certainly never said she could just take it without discussing it. Mrs. Williams. Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. Yesterday, I overheard Tom on the phone. He was telling someone he'd handle the mother problem, and that he'd have access to the rest of the money after the wedding. It scared me. Ice ran through my veins. The rest of the money? Alice doesn't know I know this, but her grandmother, your mother, left her a trust that matures on her wedding day. It's substantial. My mother had died when Alice was 15, and yes, she'd left Alice money, but it was supposed to be a modest amount for her education. Unless. Clara, I need you to do something for me. I need you to look in Alice's wedding planner. My mother's lawyer was Harrison Jenkins. See if there's any correspondence from him. Hold on. I heard rustling papers. There's a thick envelope from Jenkins and Associates. It's marked confidential. Can you get me a copy? Please, Clara. I think Tom is manipulating Alice to get to that money. Clara's voice hardened. I'll do better than that. I'll meet you in an hour. As I hung up, I realized I was shaking. The trust, the wedding, the sudden exclusion, it was all connected. Tom hadn't changed. He was still the opportunistic con man I divorced. Only now, his target wasn't me. It was our daughter. And I had just 3 days to stop him. Script part separator, Clara arrived at our meeting spot, a quiet corner of the park where Alice used to play as a child, clutching a manila envelope. I made copies of everything, she said, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Mrs. Williams, it's worse than we thought. Inside the envelope were bank statements, loan applications, and a copy of what appeared to be a trust document. My hands trembled as I scanned the papers. $750,000, I whispered. My mother left Alice $750,000? Clara nodded grimly. The trust matures on her wedding day. But there's more. Look at this. She pointed to a loan application with both Tom and Alice's signatures. He'd convinced her to secure a $100,000 loan against her future trust money she didn't even know the full extent of. Why would she sign this? I asked, horrified. Tom told her the wedding venue needed a massive deposit or they'd lose the date. Then there was the emergency with the dress designer and the honeymoon package that was about to expire. Clara's voice trailed off. Each time, it was some crisis that needed immediate cash. I studied the loan terms. The interest rate was criminal, and there was a clause that gave Tom control of the disbursement. There's something else, Clara said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Mark doesn't know about any of this. Tom convinced Alice that Mark would feel emasculated if he knew her grandmother left her money. My stomach churned. Tom had isolated Alice from both her fiancé and me, the two people who would protect her from his schemes. When did they exclude me from the wedding? When exactly did that happen? Clara looked down. The day after Tom showed Alice the final cost of everything. He told her you refused to pay what you'd promised. That you were jealous of her happiness. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. My daughter believed I'd broken a promise I never made. The final document in the stack made my blood run cold. Power of attorney papers, already signed by Alice, just waiting for notarization after the wedding. Oh my God, ibreated. He's going to take everything. Script part separator, Clara squeezed my hand. What are we going to do? I stared at the documents, my mind racing. If I went to Alice now, she'd never believe me. Tom had poisoned her against me too thoroughly. I needed irrefutable proof, and I needed to expose Tom in a way he couldn't spin or deny. I need to talk to Harrison Jenkins, I said finally. And I need to see exactly where this money is going. For the next 48 hours, I barely slept. I met with my mother's lawyer, who was horrified by what I showed him. The trust had specific conditions. My mother had never trusted Tom and had included provisions to protect Alice from exactly this kind of manipulation. Mr. Jenkins, I need copies of the original trust documents. And I need to know if there are any other conditions we can use. Harrison adjusted his glasses, studying the paperwork. There is one clause your mother insisted on. If Tom directly benefits from the trust funds through coercion or manipulation, Alice forfeits 50% of the inheritance. My heart sank. I don't want to punish Alice. You misunderstand, Patricia. That 50% doesn't disappear. It goes into a protected account that only Alice can access after a mandatory 1-year waiting period. Your mother called it her cooling-off clause. She was quite determined to protect Alice from her father's influence. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. My mother had anticipated this. She'd created a safety net from beyond the grave. Next, I hired a private investigator to track where the withdrawn money had gone. Within hours, he called with his findings. None of it went to wedding vendors, Mrs. Williams. Every penny was transferred directly to accounts controlled by Thomas Williams. Some went to pay off gambling debts, some to credit cards. Nothing, and I mean nothing, went to the wedding. The final piece fell into place when Clara texted me a photo of a check she'd found while helping Alice pack for the honeymoon. It was from the wedding venue, returning a deposit, the same deposit Tom had claimed required Alice to take out an emergency loan. He'd been double-dipping, convincing Alice to secure loans for deposits that either never existed or that he'd cancelled and pocketed. I now had everything I needed. The wedding was tomorrow, and I knew exactly what I had to do. Script part separator, By dawn on the wedding day, I had assembled an irrefutable case against Tom. My hands shook as I dressed not in the mother of the bride outfit I'd bought months ago, but in a simple black dress, appropriate for both a wedding and the funeral of my ex-husband's schemes. I arrived at the church an hour before the ceremony. Security guards, hired by Tom, no doubt, blocked my entrance. "Ma'am, your name isn't on the guest list," one said firmly. "That's fine. I'm not here for the ceremony," I replied calmly. "I'll wait for the reception." I sat in my car across the street, watching guests arrive. Tom stood at the entrance, playing the proud father, shaking hands and accepting congratulations for a wedding he'd manipulated into existence. My phone buzzed with a text from Clara. "She looks beautiful, but sad. She asked about you." My heart cracked, but I stayed strong. This wasn't about my hurt feelings anymore. It was about protecting Alice from financial ruin. The ceremony ended, and guests streamed toward the reception hall 3 blocks away. I followed at a distance, Harrison Jenkins and my private investigator flanking me. "Remember," Harrison cautioned, "timing is everything. Let them finish the formal entrance and first dance. We need witnesses." The reception hall glittered with expensive decorations, flowers that cost more than my monthly mortgage, crystal centerpieces that would be discarded tomorrow, an ice sculpture slowly melting like the fabrication of Tom's fatherly concern. I watched from a side entrance as Alice and Mark were introduced as husband and wife. She did look beautiful, radiant in her grandmother's restored lace veil. The one I'd carefully preserved for 20 years. The one she'd once promised I'd help her wear on this day. They danced their first dance, and then Tom took the microphone for his father of the bride speech. That was my cue. "It's time," I whispered to Harrison. As Tom raised his glass and began speaking about sacrifices made for family and standing by your children, I walked straight through the center of the hall, my footsteps echoing in the sudden silence that fell over the room. Script part separator, Alice's eyes widened when she saw me. Mark looked confused. Tom's face darkened with rage. "What are you doing here?" Tom hissed, trying to block my path to the microphone. "I'm here to give my gift to the bride," I said loudly enough for the front tables to hear. "Security!" Tom called, but I was already at the microphone. For those who don't know me, I'm Patricia Williams, Alice's mother. My voice echoed through the stunned hall. I wasn't invited today, but sometimes a mother's duty overrides social niceties. Alice stood frozen beside her new husband. The hurt in her eyes nearly broke me, but I had to continue. Alice, honey, everything I'm about to say comes from love. I have documents proving your father has been systematically stealing from you. Tom lunged toward me, but Harrison and 2 waiters he'd quietly enlisted held him back. Your grandmother Helen left you a trust of $750,000 that matures today, I continued, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. Your father has already embezzled over $30,000 from our joint account, claiming it was for wedding expenses that were never paid. I held up the bank statements and canceled check copies. The venue deposit he claimed required an emergency loan? He canceled it and pocketed the refund. The dress crisis? Fabricated. The honeymoon package about to expire? A lie. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Alice's hand went to her mouth. And this, I said, holding up the power of attorney document, would give him complete control of your inheritance once notarized. He planned to drain it within months. She's lying, Tom shouted, struggling against the men holding him. She's always been jealous of our relationship. Script part separator, Tell them, Tom, I challenged. Tell everyone about the gambling debts. The tax liens. The 3 creditors suing you. Tell them why you suddenly needed control of Alice's money. The blood drained from Tom's face. Mark stepped forward, putting his arm protectively around Alice's shoulders. Is this true? Alice's voice was barely audible, her eyes fixed on her father. Tom's face contorted, shifting from rage to a practiced paternal concern. Alley cat, your mother has always been unstable. You know that. This is exactly why I suggested she not attend. Mr. Smith from the catering company stepped forward. Actually, the check for our services bounced last week. Mr. Williams assured us it was a bank error. The wedding planner joined in. And we're still waiting for the final payment that was due yesterday. One by one, vendors confirmed they hadn't been paid, despite Alice securing loans supposedly for these very expenses. Alice turned to Clara. Did you know about this? Clara nodded tearfully. I found the evidence yesterday. Your mom's been trying to protect you, not hurt you. Alice's eyes met mine across the room, realization dawning on her face. The text. The uninvite. You didn't even know, did you? I shook my head. The first I heard of it was when you texted me. Tom sent the formal uninvitation in your name. Harrison Jenkins cleared his throat loudly. Ms. Williams, Alice, there's more you should know. Your grandmother anticipated something like this might happen. All eyes turned to the distinguished lawyer as he explained the cooling-off clause in Helen's trust. If your father directly benefits from manipulation of the trust, 50% automatically transfers to a protected account only you can access after 1 year. Your grandmother was quite determined to protect you from exactly this scenario. Script part separator, Alice stared at her father, tears streaming down her face. You used me. All of this, the sudden interest in my life, the wedding planning, it was about getting Grandma's money? Tom's expression shifted from rage to the calculated charm I knew all too well. Sweetheart, your mother is twisting things. I was trying to give you the wedding you deserved. By stealing from me. Alice's voice grew stronger. By lying about Mom. The reception hall had fallen completely silent. 200 guests witnessed Tom's facade crumbling in real time. Show me the trust document, Mark suddenly demanded, stepping forward. As an accountant, he understood financial matters. I want to see exactly what's happening here. Harrison handed over the papers. Mark scanned them quickly, his face darkening with each page. There's a clause here requiring Alice to sign a financial disclosure to her spouse before the trust disperses, Mark said slowly, looking up at Tom. You told her not to tell me about the inheritance. You said it would make me feel less than a man. Tom lunged for the papers. This is a private family matter. We're family now, Mark said firmly, moving the documents out of reach. And you've been lying to all of us. The wedding planner approached Alice cautiously. The contracts were all signed by your father, not you. We've been dealing exclusively with him. Alice turned to me, her eyes filled with confusion and pain. Mom, I don't understand. How did this happen? How did I not see it? I stepped toward her, careful not to move too quickly. Honey, he's had years to perfect his manipulation. He isolated you from the people who love you most. That's what con men do. I am not a con man, Tom roared, finally breaking free from the men restraining him. I am her father. A father who forged his daughter's signature on loan documents, said the private investigator, stepping forward with more evidence. A father who pocketed refunded deposits and redirected wedding funds to pay off gambling debts. Script part separator script part separator Tom lunged at the investigator, but security guards, the same ones who had kept me out, now restrained him. You're making a terrible mistake, Allie, Tom snarled. Everything I did was for your future. Alice stepped toward him, shaking despite Mark's supportive arm around her waist. My future? Or your debts? She turned to the stunned guests. I am so sorry for what you've witnessed today. This isn't the celebration any of us expected. Then she did something that made my heart swell with pride. She walked across the room and took my hand. Mom, I'm sorry. I believed him when he said you were trying to control me, that you were jealous of him being back in my life. I squeezed her hand. You have nothing to apologize for, sweetheart. The police are on their way, Harrison announced quietly. The fraud charges are substantial. Tom's face contorted with rage. You'll regret this. All of you. I was the only one looking out for Allie's best interests. Officer Davis stepped forward from among the guests. I think I've heard enough, Tom. As a wedding guest and an off-duty police officer, I'm placing you under citizen's arrest until my colleagues arrive. As Tom was escorted out, still shouting threats and accusations, Alice turned to her guests. Please stay. Enjoy the food and music. This wedding may not be what I thought it was, but I've still married the love of my life today. She smiled at Mark, who looked shell-shocked but resolute. And I've rediscovered something just as important, she continued, squeezing my hand. The unconditional love of a mother who never gave up on me, even when I pushed her away. Script part separator The reception continued, though naturally with a different energy than planned. Some guests left, uncomfortable with the drama they'd witnessed. Most stayed, gathering around Alice and Mark with genuine support and affection. I found myself at the head table, the seat hurriedly adjusted to accommodate the mother of the bride who wasn't supposed to be there. It's not the wedding day I imagined for you, I told Alice quietly as we watched couples dance. She gave me a tremulous smile. Me neither. But it's honest. And that's worth something. Harrison approached with a serious expression. We should discuss next steps. The trust disbursement is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Alice nodded. We'll meet you at your office first thing. Mark put his arm around Alice's shoulders. We are canceling the honeymoon. Seems we have more important matters to handle. I noticed the strain in his voice. Alice had just become a wealthy woman, but under circumstances that had appended their perfect day. Mark, I said carefully, I hope you know none of this reflects on you. He gave a short laugh. Finding out your new wife has a substantial inheritance and your father-in-law is a criminal wasn't in my wedding day bingo card. Alice looked stricken, but Mark quickly added, I'm just processing, honey. I don't care about the money. I care that he hurt you. The DJ announced the mother-daughter dance. Apparently Clara had updated the schedule. As Alice and I moved to the center of the floor, whispers followed us. Hold your head high, I murmured as we began to dance. You did nothing wrong. I believed him so easily, Mom. How could I have been so blind? Script part separator Because he told you what you wanted to hear. That's how manipulation works. She rested her head on my shoulder like she used to do as a little girl. I trusted him over you. After everything you've done for me. The music swelled around us as we swayed. I felt eyes on us from every direction, but in that moment, it was just mother and daughter finding their way back to each other. After we know the trust is secure, I want to pay back every penny he took from your account, Alice whispered. We figure it all out, I promised. One day at a time. When the music ended, there was gentle applause. Clara appeared with tissues for both of us, then pulled Alice into a fierce hug. I should have told you sooner, she said. I was trying to gather enough evidence. Alice smiled through her tears. You did exactly right. Both of you did. As the evening continued, I watched my daughter gradually relax. The tension in her shoulders eased as she shared quiet conversations with Mark, both of them processing the day's revelations together. It wasn't the carefree celebration they'd planned, but there was something powerful in the way they faced this crisis as a united team. Near the end of the reception, Alice sought me out again. Mom, will you come back to our place tonight? I don't think I can handle a hotel room right now. Of course, sweetheart. Her eyes were tired but clear. I've been so stupid. No, I said firmly. You've been loved by someone who used that love against you. There's no shame in that. Script part separator equals. As we drove to Alice and Mark's apartment that night, I felt a sense of both victory and profound sadness. The truth had come out, but at such a cost to my daughter's special day. You know, Alice said quietly as we entered their modest two-bedroom, part of me suspected something wasn't right. Dad kept making these grand promises, then saying we needed more money immediately. Mark was making tea in the kitchen, his tie loosened, his face still processing the day's events. I should have questioned it more. When he told me not to worry about the finances, that he was handling everything as his gift to us. He's always been good at making people feel special while he works his angles, I said, accepting a steaming mug. Your grandmother saw through him from day one. That's why she set up the trust the way she did. Alice curled up on the couch, looking suddenly very young. Will he go to jail? Probably, I answered honestly. The fraud is substantial, and this isn't his first offense. I keep thinking about all those moments these last few months, she whispered. The lunch dates, the shopping trips, the way he'd tear up talking about how proud he was of me. Was any of it real? Mark sat beside her, taking her hand. I think that's the hardest part to accept. Maybe he does love you, in his way. But he loves himself more. Harrison says we should expect the police to want statements tomorrow, I said. And the bank will need documentation to dispute the fraudulent withdrawals. Alice nodded, then suddenly laughed, a small, bitter sound. Some honeymoon, huh? Police statements and bank paperwork. We can still have a real honeymoon later, Mark assured her. When this is all sorted. I watched them lean into each other, finding strength together despite the chaos. In that moment, I knew they'd be okay. You know, Alice said, meeting my eyes, Grandma Helen always said the measure of love isn't how it feels in good times, but what it does in bad ones. Smiled, remembering my mother's wisdom. She was right. Your love so to detest today, Mom. Even when I pushed you away, you fought for me anyway. The tears I'd been holding back all day finally fell. We had a long road ahead, legal battles, financial reclamations, emotional healing, but we would walk it together. 2 months after the wedding, we gathered in Harrison Jenkins' office for what he called final housekeeping. The trust was securely in Alice's name, with a protective 50% in the separate account as Helen had specified. Tom was awaiting trial, denied bail due to flight risk. One last thing, Harrison said, sliding a sealed envelope across his desk. Helen instructed me to give this to Alice if the cooling-off clause was ever activated. Alice's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter and a vintage sapphire ring I recognized immediately, my mother's most treasured possession. My dearest Alice, she read aloud, voice breaking. If you're reading this, your father has done what I feared he might. I'm sorry for the pain this has caused, but not for the protection I put in place. This ring belonged to my grandmother, who taught me that a woman's strength comes from wisdom, not wealth. The money is yours to build your future, but this ring is to remind you of your past, of the line of strong women you come from. Alice slipped the ring onto her finger, tears streaming down her face. She knew, she whispered. All these years ago, she knew. Helen always saw people clearly, I said softly. As we left the lawyer's office, stepping into the bright spring sunshine, Alice linked her arm through mine. Mark and I rebooked our honeymoon, she said. But I want you to come to dinner first. We have something to tell you. That evening, over home-cooked pasta in their apartment, they shared their news. Alice was pregnant. Despite everything, life was continuing its cycle of renewal and hope. Later, as Mark cleared the dishes, Alice took my hands. I've been thinking a lot about family legacies, she said. Not the money, but the wisdom passed down. Grandma protected me from beyond the grave. You fought for me when I rejected you. That's the inheritance I want to pass on to my child. I squeezed her hands, thinking of my mother, myself, Alice, and now this new life. 4 generations of women bound by love stronger than any betrayal. We survive, I said simply. And then we thrive. As I drove home that night, I realized the greatest revenge against Tom wasn't exposing his schemes or seeing justice served. It was this: generations of women, standing together, unbroken by his deception. Our story continuing, stronger for having weathered the storm.